Hi, everybody. I do feel bad that I disparaged the Dead Sea Scrolls when I was talking about the Cairo Geniza. So for those of you who were there, you can put it at the background of your mind, because today we are talking about a very important corpus of texts, the Dead Sea Scrolls. And we're just going to give a very broad introduction. The process of publishing 800 different scrolls, and now it's closer to 900, really did not finish until the late 1990s. And this is actually one of the biggest scandals in the field of Jewish scholarship. How could this have happened? I mean, scholars waited their entire academic careers to see these documents. If you heard about the discovery in the early 1950s, and people in the field did know about the Dead Sea Scrolls, but they didn't get access. The average scholar, unless they were on the editorial team of the DJD, the Discoveries of the Judean Desert, the official editorial team of the publications, unless they were an insider working on the manuscripts, they did not have access to the scrolls until the mid-1990s. So how did this happen? If you were a 35-year-old young scholar in 1955, you thought, I'm going to spend the next 30 years on this incredibly important, right? Documents from the 1st century CE, this is unheard of. Most of the time, at least in my field, in the field of Jewish studies, scholars are working with medieval manuscripts. And next week, if you come, we'll talk about the medieval manuscripts, Jewish manuscripts, but medieval, that are preserved in Greek Orthodox monasteries, in St. Catherine's, in North Africa, in Greece. But 1st century CE documents, really, really unheard of. And people just let their careers just slide away. And just imagine the agony of waiting and waiting and just never getting there. So this is a real scandal, and we'll talk about what happened and how this could have happened. So the first thing is, we're going to talk about where this is. And I'm going to tell you a legend, and this is the legend that you'll read about whenever you read any intro to the Dead Sea Scrolls. You'll hear this legend. There is some cynicism on the part of scholars whether it actually happened this way, but I'll tell you the legend, and then we'll give the cynical view. So 1947, an innocent shepherd, a member of the Ta'amra Bedouin tribe, a young lad with apparently his cousin or his friend, the two of them are shepherding their sheep in the region just northwest of the northwestern corner of the Dead Sea. A very mountainous, well, it's a desert, but it's cliffy. There are lots of cliffs, and they're walking around with their sheep. Not the greatest place for shepherding sheep. Okay, we'll put that on the back burner. And so they're shepherding their sheep, and apparently one sheep gets lost. Or I feel like there are maybe a couple hundred different stories in world history that start out this way. One sheep gets lost. And so one of the Bedouin shepherds goes to follow the sheep, and the sheep goes into a cave. And the sheep knocks over what sounds like pottery, and so the shepherd goes in to investigate. Lo and behold, there are ancient vases. They're very, very old-looking vases. He doesn't know if they're ancient yet, and there are scrolls in these vases. Okay, why do I say that maybe it didn't happen this way? I mean, this is like really serendipitous. I did not look for them. I just found them. The whole idea of looking for antiquities in order to sell them is a very controversial idea, right? I mean, this plays into a lot of different issues. It plays into ownership, right? Who owns ancient documents? And this isn't necessarily a resolved question, but we have to consider this question, right? Right now, today in Israel, if you find something on your property that's ancient, you don't own it. You're not allowed to dig on your property. If you happen to find something, you have to tell the Israel Antiquities Authority. You can't just put it on your shelf. It doesn't belong to you. Right? Okay, so there's the question of like, were they looking for ancient material that would have been valuable? So that is the more cynical possibility. I don't know, I wasn't there. I'm just saying that this is all very serendipitous, and there was an antiquities market, like in the 1880s, we talked about that, with the identical twin Presbyterian Scottish sisters. This is always going on, right? Even today, this is going on. There's a market for ancient goods. Whatever the case is, a few caves, not all 13 caves, but a couple caves were discovered in 1947 and 1948, and these members of the Bedouin tribe, the Ta'amra tribe, approached antiquities dealers in Bethlehem. And these antiquities dealers made contacts with religious leaders in Israel. But of course, what was happening in 1948, this is like a very, very tense time. And that plays into politics of the War of Independence, plays into what happens to the scrolls. So we're going to talk for a few minutes about the discovery of the first 7 scrolls. When the caves were discovered, 4 scrolls ended up in the Syriac Christian community, and 3 scrolls ended up at Hebrew University. This is way before excavations were done and they found 800 manuscripts. Nobody knew what was beyond these 7 scrolls. So by 1948, scholars knew there exists out there 7 scrolls, but they didn't know what was beyond that. Okay. So, and by the way, before I tell you all of these events, you have to keep in mind, we're talking about 2 different things here. We're talking about the caves of Qumran, that if you've seen pictures of them, you can see they're literally cliffs. And access to some of these caves are very, very challenging, right? To get into these caves, there's small holes on the side of cliffs, some of them. So very, very inaccessible. So you have these caves, and the main cave that holds the vast majority of the library that was stored here in the 1st century is Cave 4. And then next to these caves, you have an archaeological site. And that's Qumran. So there are 2 different things here. There's an archaeological site where we know people were inhabiting the 1st century BCE, 1st century CE, and some scholars say 2nd century BCE, so that's a debate. But end of the Second Temple period, let's say. So we have this archaeological site with, I was saying before we started talking, 10 mikvahs. A very, very unusual, small, but very unusual archaeological site. And then next to that, you see how close Cave 4 is to the archaeological site. Some of them are not as close to Qumran. And then, so you have this library of scrolls in these caves, and then you have the archaeological site where these people lived. Now, I'm presuming a connection between these caves and Qumran. That connection should not be taken for granted, because at least for the first 20 years of Dead Sea Scroll scholarship, even today, you have to argue for that connection. How do I make a link between what I see here archaeologically and what do I see in the documents? And there are links. I mean, the best link has to do with emphasis on purity law. So, and there are other links as well. There's a document we might talk about at the end of the hour called the Damascus document. There's also the community rule. These texts talk about how the people will conduct themselves. The members of this community at Qumran or wherever it was have to conduct themselves. And there are certain clues in the Damascus document and in the community rule that correlate with the archaeological site of Qumran. But not all scholars buy into that connection. The vast majority do. But just, we have to know, there are documents, there's a library, and there's the archaeological site. So 2 separate things. Okay, all right, so what happens here? So we have 7 scrolls. And the first 4 scrolls, so the Ta'amra, the Bedouins, who are the shepherds, they go to Bethlehem, and 4 of these scrolls are given to an antiquities dealer who, his nickname is Kondo, Khalil Eskander Shaheen. And Kondo was a well-known antiquities dealer, and he was a go-between between Jews and Christians, the Christian community and the Muslim community, and he was a well-known antiquities dealer. So Kondo took 4 of these scrolls that were found, and he makes contact with the Syrian Orthodox Church in Jerusalem. It's a church called St. Mark's. And the head of this church was a very well-respected archbishop of the Syrian Orthodox community, and his name is Athanasius Samuel. I think there's his picture, but I don't want to get there yet. So you see he's very distinguished looking. So we'll get there in a second. So Athanasius Samuel purchases for a pretty low price these four scrolls, and we'll see later one of them is this incredible scroll. It's a version of Yeshayahu. And before the discovery of this scroll, the earliest manuscript of Yeshayahu was early medieval. So, I mean, Yeshayahu kind of sounds like, maybe at first blush to the average layperson, a little boring, like, oh, Yeshayahu, 66 chapters, I know like 3 verses, right? But actually, this is a really big deal for scholars. And there are some other fascinating the community rule was also one of these 4 documents. So Hebrew U, and in particular a scholar named Eliezer Libas-Kenik, who is the father of a very, very famous Israeli politician and general archaeologist, Yigal Yadin. Maybe you've heard of him? Okay. This is his father. So Kenik is a professor at Hebrew University. He gets wind of Mar Samuel's acquisition, and he wants to buy it, and he makes contact with Mar Samuel, and he says, I'll buy your 4 scrolls for 1,000 Jordanian pounds. And Mar Samuel says no. Now, there are 2 theories of why he said no. He could have said no. One school of thought is he didn't want Jews to come into ownership of these scrolls. I don't know. Like I always say to my students, I wasn't there. I don't know. But it's possible that he did not want Hebrew U to have these scrolls, that he wanted to be part of the Christian community. Remember, at this point, they don't know what these scrolls are. They could have been early Christian documents. And for the first few years after the scrolls are discovered, there are some outliers who say, oh, this is a community of Jews who follow the teachings of James. I don't know if anyone has read the New Testament here, but James is an important spiritual leader who's mentioned in the New Testament. Maybe this is a Jamesian community, or maybe these are somehow proto-Christians. They don't know, right? So Mar Samuel is not comfortable saying, oh, these are Jewish texts that rightfully belong to the Jews. Another possibility is simply that when he hears the figure 1,000 Jordanian pounds, he says, you know what, maybe I can get more, and I'm just going to sit on it because I don't know the value of these scrolls. Maybe I'm being swindled, and I need to sit on this and get more information. But he doesn't sell the scrolls to us, to Kenik, and Kenik doesn't give up. For years, he schemes is negative, but he's thinking, okay, how do I get these scrolls? I need to see these scrolls. Strategizing. That's so positive. That's really positive, not scheming. Anyway, so Mar Samuel's holding on to these 4 scrolls, and he doesn't know what to do with them because he wants to make sure, I think A, he does want them in certain hands, and B, he wants to make sure that he gets a fair price. So he gets in touch with a Syriac Christian living in, wait for it, Worcester, Massachusetts. Some people are like, yeah, I know this story, of course, it's Worcester, Massachusetts. This person he's a Syriac Christian, so I talked about this a little bit I'm pointing to an invisible map over here, last week. So you have the land of Israel, and then just north of Israel where you have the ancient city of Antioch, right, modern day Syria. So there's a big community of Christians there in the first 4 centuries, and they spoke a dialect of Aramaic called Syriac. So when I say Syriac Christians, I mean Christians who speak Syriac from that community. There are also Syriac Christians in Iran. It's a different dialect of Syriac, but it's also Syriac. You don't need to know all these details, but the name of this person in Worcester, Massachusetts, who owns a plumbing supply company, fun detail, his name is Charles Manoug. And apparently Charles Manoug holds onto these 4 documents until 1954 in his bedroom in a box. He doesn't know what to do with them. Mar Samuel is a friend, they know each other from the old country, and Mar Samuel sends them to Charles Manoug. Charles Manoug says, okay, you'll tell me what you want to do with them when you're ready. In the meantime, they're in a box in my bedroom. And that is where they stayed until 1954. And then 1954, Mar Samuel says, we're just going to get rid of this. We're going to do something with these scrolls. They're precious scrolls. Let's find something to, let's get these off of our hands. And so they put an ad in the Wall Street Journal. Have you heard of the famous Wall Street Journal ad for the Dead Sea Scrolls? 1954, this is what it reads, it's hard to see. Biblical manuscripts dating back to at least 200 BC. Now they weren't really off. It's actually impressive that how would you date a scroll like this? You would date it paleographically, that means with handwriting, to look at how the letters are written, and you would date it with carbon dating, but they didn't have carbon dating. So this is an estimate, and it's a pretty good estimate. It's probably a little early. Let's say these are 1st century BC or CE, but okay. Biblical manuscripts dating back to at least 200 BCE are for sale. This would be an ideal gift to an education or religious institution by an individual or group. So they're just like ready to get rid of these things, right? And then there's a P.O. box, which is great. Okay, so who sees this? Someone connected to Hebrew University. And this is Kenik's chance to get the 4 scrolls. So what do? This is very shady, so just judge it however you want to judge it. But I'm just the storyteller, so I'm just telling you what happens. What happens is that a representative of the Chemical National Bank contacts Charles Manoug, aka Professor Harry Orlinsky, but he goes by Mr. Green. This is true. and a representative of Chemical National Bank says, we want to purchase your scrolls. And of course they don't tell Manug and Mar Samuel that they're from Hebrew University. They're just Mr. Green. And we will buy them for $250,000. Okay, that's in 1954. I have a husband who's an accountant, so I asked him to figure out, based on inflation, how much this would be today, and I had the figure right here. $2,182,267. That is a very big advantage of having a husband who can calculate that, I think. Based, he tells me, I don't know for sure, on an annual inflation rate of 3.62. So in other words, this is a lot of money. And it's over $2 million, right, in 1954 for 4 scrolls that they've never seen. And it's funded by Hebrew University. They set up a meeting in New York, I think it's in New York, and they have Mr. Green verify the scrolls. This is Harry Orlinsky. And he says, yes, we are going to purchase these scrolls. The transaction is done. And Hebrew U comes into possession of these 4 scrolls. I mean, this is like an incredible story. Intrigue, right? It's almost as good as Margaret Dunlop Gibson, Agnes Smith Lewis. Okay. So Hebrew U, by 1954, gets 4 scrolls. Now, we know in the scheme of things, it's just a tiny, tiny sliver of what the Dead Sea Scroll Library is, right? And it's taken 8 years. This is kind of indicative of how things are going to go for the next half century. Acquiring and publishing the Dead Sea Scrolls is just really a massive headache. You're dealing with a lot of different parties. So remember I said originally there were 7 scrolls discovered. So the Bedouin dealers took the 3 other scrolls and brought them to a dealer named Faidi Salahi. I don't have a picture of him. Who brings it to a different dealer. There's no test, so you don't write this down. Nasri Ohan, who has some relationship with Sukenik and reaches out to Sukenik. Now what's the problem? He wants to show Sukenik these 3 scrolls that he has. And Jerusalem is under partition. So how do you meet up when you're political enemies? How is he going to meet Sukenik in a neutral area, right? On the brink of war, just before the war, Nasri Ohan has these scrolls and Sukenik wants to see them. So they meet at, this is how Sukenik, it's a very, very dramatic scene how Sukenik describes it, but they meet on 2 sides of a barbed wire fence, right by the Jaffa Gate. And Ohan unscrolls the scrolls through the barbed wire fence, and Sukenik verifies it that way. I mean, this is like crazy stuff, yeah. And so Sukenik determines they're genuine and they're ancient, and he purchases these 3 scrolls on behalf of the Hebrew University. And so one is a scroll of hymns, the Thanksgiving scrolls. One is a scroll envisioning the end time, the apocalyptic war between what's called the Sons of Light, which is the community of Qumran, and everyone else. It's called the War of the Sons of Light against the Sons of Darkness. It's a very, very interesting text. And then a second scroll of Isaiah, all very, very ancient. And so by 1954, Hebrew University is in possession of 7 scrolls. And at this time, Qumran is under Jordanian control. So now what do? How do you conduct more excavations? And this is where it gets super tricky. Because Hebrew U knows there's probably more out there. They don't know exactly, Qumran has not been excavated yet. Oh, I'm pointing to the wrong. Let's go. Okay. Qumran has not been excavated yet. But they know that there's excavation work to be done. And I'll just skip ahead to say, you can guess why, but the team of excavators and editors of the Dead Sea Scrolls, there was not one Israeli member of either team until the 1980s. Yeah. And that's why I was saying to one of you before I started teaching, scholars like Lawrence Schiffman, is always emphasizing, he's a professor at NYU, and Orthodox Jew, always emphasizing the halachic nature of the scrolls. To him, that's been missed in the history of Dead Sea Scroll scholarship, and you can imagine why it's been missed, right? Because there were no Larry Schiffmans working on the scrolls in the original team. Okay, so let's backtrack. The Jordanian Antiquities Department in the early 1950s collaborates with the École Biblique et Archéologique, oh god, does someone speak French? It's terrible. Archéologique Français, gosh. I did take high school French. This is what we're getting here. So There's a French school of archaeology, and the Jordanian Antiquities Department collaborate to form a team of archaeologists. And this team conducts, over the course of 7 or 8 years, 5 excavations. So when you do an excavation, you're doing by season, right? You're not excavating year-round, so 5 separate excavations of Qumran. And meanwhile, an editorial team is set up to excavate the caves and try to publish the scrolls. The head of the excavations is a French priest named Roland Deveau. And he excavates Qumran. At this time, we sort of enter into a dry period where very, very little is published. Deveau's field notes, some of them were never published, or they were published well after his death. People didn't really know what was going on with excavations for a very long time. And likewise with the scrolls, there was an editorial team assembled. Like I said, not one Jewish member on the original team. It was mainly, there were some English Protestant scholars, there were some French scholars, but none of them were Jews. And they're trying to collect and collate and publish the documents while Qumran's being excavated. The original team, legend has it, when they worked with some of the manuscripts, you know, they weren't all complete. The scroll of Isaiah is gorgeous, beautiful, big, and really like not torn up, very great condition. But a lot of them were fragments. And so a lot of this was guesswork. Like we have, let's say 200 fragments from K5, right? Now we have to put these things together because a lot of the pottery that contained these documents were broken by the time the teams got in there. And so the original team, some of them were using Scotch tape to put, yeah, that's the sound that I want here, right? Because that's, right? Using Scotch tape. No, so now we know better, right? Now we're like condescending about it, like, oh yeah, if I was on that team, let me tell you, I would have used my laser imaging. But of course, no one knew how to work with ancient first century CE texts, right? So they're Scotch taping things together, you can see pictures of, but this is a very nice picture of them, the first team sort of laying everything out. And remember that jumble of Karaganese documents are just, so this was less of a mess, but still there were fragments that had to be matched up with other fragments. So this was, everyone knew this was going to take a long time. And so what they did was they split up all the documents that were found among each of the original members of the editorial team. So one person got, this amount of documents, you're making a face, and I can guess why. I mean, this is a huge amount, this is a massive, massive project, right? People were holding on to the manuscripts that they had been assigned and they weren't publishing them. Part of this is there was incredible public intrigue about the scrolls. And so once you publish them, they're not yours anymore. I mean, it goes out into the world. And there was sort of this protectiveness, like, these are my scrolls, I'm working on them, I will let you know when I'm ready. So people were taking their Mary all the time. The bigger problem is that as things progress, a few editions of DJD, the Discoveries of the Judean Desert, were published in the 50s, very few, like a very small percentage of what was actually out there. But as the members of the original team died in the 70s, or were aging, or were retiring, they were only being replaced by one member, so the team was never growing. So this is a massive, massive job, and it was a very small team of people, under 10 people. Yeah.
But all this time there were 7 scrolls that Hebrew University had at the same time?
Right.
And they had their own team that was publishing those? Or?
Yeah, I think so. I actually don't know when. Those were published early, but I don't remember who was assigned those scrolls. Yeah, but then there were other, right, so, that's a good question. Stukenik, I know, published in the early 1950s. I don't know if he published all 7 scrolls, but he definitely published some of the scrolls. Yeah, that's a good question. Okay, so we have this team, and excavations going on at the same time. One of the earliest, and also, so here's the complicating thing. You have 800 to 900 separate scrolls, right? You have these caves, you have the archaeological site, you're trying to do all this at once. And then at the same time, you're asking, what does this all represent, right? And different theories start to emerge before all the evidence is out. And some of these theories are really terrible theories. Among them is that this is an early Christian, and the reason why I say that's a terrible theory is just because of a lack of evidence. There's no reference to Jesus in the scrolls. you might argue there's a reference to someone called the teacher of righteousness. As some argue, okay, maybe is it Jesus? Is it James? I mean, even if you say he's a Jew, you don't know who he is. He's not named. He's not identified. He has something to do with the origins of the sect. So there are all these debates coming up, and in the beginning, the possibility that these are proto-Christian or Christian texts are really coming to the fore. And one of the very, very first editions of DJD to be published was published by an English scholar named John Allegro. John Allegro, to his credit, published very fast. But to his discredit, he argued that the writers of the scrolls were on shrooms. And this ruined his career. He wrote a book called The Sacred Mushroom and the Cross, in which he argued that these people, the community living at Qumran, had these spiritual revelations because they were eating psychedelic mushrooms. You can read the book, you can get it on Amazon. When he wrote this book, he was basically, he had to retire from academic life, to put it gently. But he wasn't the only one to purport these theories. There was a woman named Barbara Tearing in Australia who also, well, she didn't say they were all mushrooms, but she was saying these people were all Christians, and there were arguments that really did not have basis in any of the documents. To be fair, most scholars who were purporting theories like this didn't have access to the vast majority of the documents. But I thought I would mention John Allegro because he did publish very, very fast. But his edition of some of the K4 documents had to be republished in the 1990s because there were so many mistakes. And John Strugnell, who was the head of the editorial team for DJD in the 1980s, wrote a response to Allegro's edition of DJD that was longer than the edition of DJD itself. So it was not well regarded. And so there starts to be dissension, internal dissension among members of the team. How do you approach the scrolls, right? But everyone's kind of waiting on each other, waiting for certain information to come out. And I've heard from different scholars who are of a certain age that in the 1980s, and even in the 1970s, SBL meetings, the Society of Biblical Literature, would meet for their annual meeting once a year, and there would be panels on different areas of Jewish scholarship, and the panels on the Dead Sea Scrolls would be incredibly contentious, and there would be screaming matches and yelling at because there were certain people in the room who had access to manuscripts that they weren't publishing. So it grew and grew in contentiousness, and it was very, very tense as we go into the 1980s. Very little, there's a trickle of publishing, but very, very little is being published. The biggest problem here is that, as I said, as people are retiring, they're only being replaced usually by their doctoral student, or someone who was their doctoral student, or someone from their department, but they're publishing from people within their departments and not spreading the wealth. And so we have a team that's led by John Strugnell, an English scholar at Harvard, pretty sure he's at Harvard, at least he was at Harvard at the end of his career. John Strugnell, who's the editor-in-chief of DJD, and nothing is being basically nothing is being published. And people are just getting really, really impatient with the whole situation. And in 1991, I think, he has an interview with the Israeli newspaper Haaretz, and there's I have to find the quote somewhere in here. And in this interview, which probably he gave when he was extremely drunk, not on shrooms. I'm sorry, not on shrooms, but very, very drunk. He, or moderately drunk. Okay, I have it in here. I'll just read you the PowerPoint. He says in this interview, and it's published for all to see, Judaism is originally racist. It's a folk religion. It's not a higher religion. It's pretty typical. We touched on this last week. The idea that Christianity took all the ethical material from Judaism and then expanded it and universalized it, and then sort of Judaism withered away and is no longer a thriving religion. This is pretty typical, unfortunately, of some scholars, especially of his generation. An anti-Judaist, that's what I am. There, I plead guilty. There's a little bit of antagonism here. I plead guilty in the way the church has pleaded guilty all along. So, sorry, not sorry, hashtag right. Because we're not guilty, we're right. Can you imagine giving in an interview, they said, Christianity presents itself as a religion which replaces the Jewish religion. The correct answer of Jews to Christianity is to become Christian. I agree that there have been monstrosities in the past, the Inquisition, things like that. I don't know if he's thinking about the Holocaust, but it is the early 90s. We should certainly behave ourselves like Christian gentlemen, but the basic judgment on the Jewish religion is for me a -1. And so when this came out in Haaretz, he was invited to resign from being editor-in-chief of DJD. And he died shortly after that. He did have years and years of issues with alcoholism, and many of his colleagues who were Jewish defended Strugnell because on a personal level they felt very affectionate towards him. They liked his personality, they clicked with him. So it's not always black and white. There were many Jewish scholars who said, no, he's a good guy, I've worked with him. He's beset by all kinds of personal troubles, and it's not his fault that the other people on the team are not publishing fast enough. So all different kinds of people defended Strugnell. It's not clear exactly, where he stood with all Jewish scholars, But this interview, you couldn't go back from it. That was it for him. And he was replaced by, in the early 90s, by a professor, it's not a very flattering picture, but Emmanuel Tove at Hebrew University. I have his birthday, but he's still alive. I see him at conferences every year. Emmanuel Tove becomes he's born in Poland, but he's an Israeli scholar, I'm pretty sure. No, Belgium, I think. He's not born in Israel, but he is long-standing scholar at Hebrew University, and he becomes editor-in-chief of DJD, Discoveries in the Judean Desert, and the early 90s were really when the Dead Sea Scrolls were published. Not the early 90s, all the 90s. Yeah, the mid-90s, the late 90s. He completes the set. Basically everything becomes published. This is like really an incredible time to be a scholar of the Dead Sea Scrolls, but it's also a very, very controversial time because as things are being published but not yet published, the anticipation is growing and attention is growing. And so there becomes a race. Once Tove takes over for the series, there becomes like a real race to start putting things out. Everyone knows that the tide is changing, that these documents are now public domain, and there are a bunch of different scandals that happened in the 1990s in terms of the question of who owns these texts. Now, this is actually a great question ethically, I think. Let's say I'm working with one document, but it's torn into 40 parts, and I piece it together in the way that I think, like a puzzle, in the way that I think it should look. This actually happened with a professor named Elisha Kimron, an Israeli scholar. He put together what's called the halachic letter. Miktzat Maaseh Torah is what it's called in Hebrew. This is a very, very important document because it's unique. There's no other copy of it ever at all. And it has all this halachic material. It's a very, very fascinating document. And Kimron spent years and years and years working on this document. Now, recently it came out, Strugnell might have done more than Kimron claimed, but whatever the case is, Kimron wouldn't publish it. The late 80s, he wouldn't let go of it. And people were very upset because they knew about the existence of what's called the halachic letter, and they wanted to see it, and Kimron kept delaying the date of publication. What ended up happening, here I'll skip ahead because I have to go back. Oh, more controversies ensue. What ended up happening is that the editor of a magazine called the Society of Biblical, he's the editor of Society of Biblical Literature. No, not the Society of Biblical Literature. Herschel Shanks, Biblical Archaeology Review. So Herschel Shanks is actually a lawyer, but he's an aficionado of archaeology, and he was the editor-in-chief of Biblical Archaeology Review, and he got a hold of the halachic letter and published it in 1992 without Kimron's permission. And can it wait, or is...
I just want to
yeah,
know,
sure.
What does it mean to publish? Like, what does that mean exactly to publish it?
So what he did was, he felt on principle that these texts should be available to all scholars. So in 1992, Shanks published a 2-volume work called A Facsimile Edition of the Dead Sea Scrolls. And without permission, it's unclear how he got 4QMMT, how he got the halachic letter, but he attained it. I think that Kimron had sent it personally to a friend, and somehow was distributed to a few people. and it was not meant to be published by these people, and Shanks published it in a facsimile edition of the Dead Sea Scrolls. That's the name of the book. And Qimron had been working on this privately, or holding on to it for 11 years, from the early 80s. So Qimron had even named it Mikzat Maseh Torah. So he did have a relationship with it. He did sort of put the pieces together to make it read the way he thought it should be read. And so Qimron sued Shanks. And the big question, this is a very, very big case, and it made the media for years and years. And the big question was, is putting these different pieces of the manuscript together an act of authorship in itself? Meaning, it's a good question, right? Is that act of creativity? Are you in a way like a poet, right? Like you're doing something, you're acting upon this text that gives you a kind of ownership, right? Or are you just an agent, right? You're someone who's working with the text doesn't belong to you. So this was brought to an Israeli court. Shanks wanted it to be, I don't know the lingo, but he wanted the suit to be done in the States, but Judge Dalia Dormer in Israel ruled in favor of Qimron. And Shanks appealed, and then in 2000, this suit went on and on and on. In the year 2000, the appeal was rejected, and Shanks had to pay Qimron a couple $100,000, I think. I mean, a lot of money. Qimron won the lawsuit. Now, ultimately, thanks to Emmanuel Tov, the Halakhic letter was published. But there was a lot of tension when it came to these scrolls. Another example, I'll go back. This is a very interesting example. So there was a concordance made for the original team of the Dead Sea editors. And this concordance basically was a book that was not mass published, there were only a few copies made just for the team. And this was a concordance that had every word that was in the scrolls in a context of a phrase. And so they developed a computer program. Ben Zion Wacholder and his student Martin Abegg developed a program to basically, using the context in which these words appeared, to reconstruct texts of the Dead Sea Scrolls. They basically said, you're not going to publish this stuff, we're going to figure this out, which is very resourceful. And so they published in 1991, they published reconstructed texts. And they did a pretty good job of getting this right. And it's called A Preliminary Edition of the Unpublished Dead Sea Scrolls. And then there are different editions. This is edition 3, the Hebrew and Aramaic text from K4. K4 is like the big one, the big kahuna. So that was 1991. So people are really getting restless, right? We have this concordance that comes out that people are starting to use, and then we have this big lawsuit over publishing Qimron's document, or is it Qimron's document? And then we have, and this is very interesting, in 1993. It turns out, nobody knew this, but there were photographs of the Dead Sea Scrolls that were taken in the early 1950s and put in secret locations. Yeah. There were 3 sets of photographs. And among these and no one knew, these were in the basements of libraries. I mean, these were very, very in secret locations. And there was one set of photographs that was placed in the Huntington Library in San Marino, California. There was also one at Hebrew Union College. And I don't remember, there was one other one that was also on the West Coast, but I don't remember where. And so 2 scholars, Robert Eisenman and Michael Wise, got a hold of these photographs. And they wanted to publish these texts very, very fast. And just because you have photographs of the Dead Sea Scrolls does not mean that then you can very easily publish the text, right? Because there are lacuna, there are holes and spaces, and things are scratched out, and sometimes they're hard to read. And so it takes like active interpretation, some might argue. I have to see what time it is. Some might, I think anyone would argue, if you're working with a Dead Sea Scroll, a manuscript that's 2,000 years old, it's not going to take you just, a couple weeks to type it up and publish it. But that's what they did essentially. They worked very, very fast, and the quality of their work was very, very low. So they put out this very sensationalist book that they don't self-publish, but they market it as like this big, finally, we are giving you the Dead Sea Scrolls and you're welcome, and we've done this amazing thing, this big, big, big service. They call it the Dead Sea Scrolls Uncovered. And they publish these texts.
Do they publish the images, or they only publish their transcriptions?
I'm pretty sure just transcriptions, yeah, good question. And so, the transcriptions and the translations, but with lots of inaccuracies. In other words, it's not really usable today. If you want to work with the Dead Sea Scroll text, you use one of the DJD editions, the Discoveries in the Judean Desert. You don't use the Dead Sea Scrolls uncovered. Uncovered. You just, besides, the name is like a little off-putting, right? Like you don't want to cite that as like your go-to text. Yeah. So they also have these strange theories about the origins of the community. They think that it's a Jamesian version of Christianity. People were following the teachings of James. They think that this is a very messianic movement. All their theories don't quite work exactly, at least not for scholars today. And so these guys were panned, really, really widely criticized. So the early 1990s, I'm going to actually get to some of the texts themselves. The early 1990s was a time of great contention between different scholars who were trying to get to the scrolls, but really by the late 1990s, they were all out. So that was like a big, big transition period, and incredibly today, they're basically all digitized. This was a collaboration between Google and Hebrew University just in the past couple of years. And like the Cairo Geniza online, these digitized photographs are, have you seen them? I mean, they're really unbelievable. You can zoom in, you can see like the thickness of the scroll. I mean, it's an absolutely incredible quality. You can comment on some of the photographs. You can ask other people. If you have a login to this website, you can ask questions, and sometimes the scholar will answer you. I mean, it's a really outstanding resource. So that's where we are today, but it really took a long time to get there. So I'd like to close with just, I think we could do a few little excerpts of the Dead Sea Scrolls, and they're on your source sheet. I would love to give you a whole lecture about, the Dead Sea Scrolls. I mean, you can take courses and courses on the Dead Sea Scrolls, but this class, and it was about the publication of the Dead Sea Scrolls. But really, it's an incredible find. Just to give you some data, I think I put it on the source sheet, but you're dealing with over 800 separate documents. 85% are Hebrew. Did I give you those stats? Right? 11 to 12% are Aramaic, 3 to 4% Greek. Yeah, I have it here. I just didn't know if I gave you the same thing. And then you have a lot of biblical documents. One of the most interesting things about the Dead Sea Library, and it is a library. Some scholars originally said this might have been a personal, there's one theory that this is a personal collection of a very wealthy family who was escaping from Jerusalem in 70 CE. I mean, that's very exciting if you want to write like historical fiction. It's very unlikely that something of this size, and some of these books have multiples, right? So there's something called the Book of Jubilees. It's not in the Bible, but it was very important to Jews in the late Second Temple period to rewriting the Book of Genesis. Why would you need 15 copies of the Book of Jubilees, right? I mean, like, I really love some books, but I don't need to buy 15 separate copies of them, right?
Your study session. Yeah.
What?
For your Jubilee study session.
That's right. That I was holding. Right. And then there's some interesting absences. One of the most glaring absences is that there's no Book of Esther in the library. So every book of the Bible that ends up being canonized in the Hebrew Bible, there's no Esther. So you could argue, an argument from silence, I'm not against that, this community did not regard the Book of Esther as canonical. But 15 copies of Jubilees, they could have. Now, what does it mean to be part of a Bible at this time? I like to use the word authoritative. Right? I don't know if they weren't using books yet. The Codex comes into use in the 2nd century. So they're not using books, so they don't have this urgent, like, what's in the book, what's out of the book. They're using scrolls. Right? You could put a scroll on a shelf, you could take a scroll off a shelf. So I like to use the word authoritative. There's a little bit more fluidity there. Right? So everybody agreed that there was a Torah, there was a Pentateuch, that was authoritative. And, they had Nevi'im. But then when you get into later writings, it's not quite as clear, right? Some books of Daniel that are not in the Bible today, but are in what's called the Apocrypha, Bel and the Dragon, the Book of Susanna, these were very important stories in Jewish lore. They're cited in rabbinic literature. But they're not in our Bible. So they were regarded as authoritative, I think. And likewise with Jubilee. So I don't think that this belonged to one family. I think that this was a library that belonged to a community. I think it is compelling that this library belonged to the people who lived at Qumran in the 1st century CE. And so we have these biblical books, but we also have books that are found in the Dead Sea caves that aren't found anywhere else. And then you have this weird situation with the Damascus document, which shows up in the Cairo Geniza, right? That's mysterious. We don't exactly know how that happened. So what I want to do is just look at a few texts that are unique to the Dead Sea Caves to get a sense of who these people were. So we have the Damascus document and we have the community rule. Those are the two guidebooks of how to live a proper, pious life among the community. But there's also midrashic material. There's exegetical material. They were reading the Bible and they were commenting on it. There's this term that's very, very problematic. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It's called rewritten Bible. So we have a lot of material written in the Second Temple period that's not part of the rabbinic corpus. It's not midrash technically, but it relates somehow to biblical material. And so scholars call that rewritten Bible. It's a problem because then it kind of suggests that these texts were meant to replace biblical books. That's certainly, I don't think that that's true. And we have this text, the Genesis Apocryphon, that really seems like you're reading Midrash. I mean, that's the only way I can describe it. This is a text about the story of Abraham, or his Avram, because it's Genesis 12, before he adds the Hey to his name. And he goes down to Egypt, remembering he says to Sarai, you have to tell them that you're my sister, because otherwise it's a very I story when it comes to Avram, right? I will be killed, so you have to be abducted, right? I mean, there are a lot of problems with the story, and not only for modern readers, there are a lot of problems for first century CE readers. And the Genesis Apocryphon comes to offer kind of an alternate reading of Genesis 12. So in Genesis Apocryphon, Avram is crying his brains out that this is happening. He's just beyond horrified that Sarai is being abducted. And one of the also very interesting element here is that he has a prophetic dream that he has to tell Sarai to tell Paro that she is Avram's sister. So he has to do it because the dream told him to. So this is great because this really, I think, speaks to traditional Jews who are very familiar with what Midrash does. Right? I mean, in a way, it seems very, it seems like a Greco-Roman adventure tale. He's crying, he's tearing his clothes, and there's like this long paragraph about her beauty and her arms and her legs and her hair and her this, and you're like, this is a little bit risque, but it's also highly sensitive to the problems, the questions of the text, and that makes it extremely midrashic. So, I don't want to try to do a lot of things and do them poorly, but I encourage you to look at Pesher Habakkuk and the community rule on your own. But let's do a little bit of Genesis Apocryphon. Let's read it, just a little bit of it, to get a sense of how maybe this wasn't written in the community of Qumran, but it was preserved and treasured by the community of Qumran. So I think we can make a link and say this is the kind of thing that they identified with, this kind of midrashic exposition of Bereshit Yud. So does somebody want to read starting from and on the night of our entry into Egypt? We have like 5 minutes left, so I need a quick volunteer.
And on the night of our entry into Egypt, I, Abram, dreamt a dream, and behold, I saw in my dream a cedar tree and a palm tree. Men came, and they sought to cut down the cedar tree and to pull up its roots, leaving the palm tree standing alone.
Oh, I have some typos, I'm sorry about that. But keep going.
But the palm tree cried out, saying, do not cut down the cedar tree, for cursed be he who shall fell it. And the cedar tree was spared because of the palm tree and was not felled.
Okay, so this is complicated, but so Abraham has this dream. There's the cedar and the palm. The men want to cut down the cedar tree, and the palm tree begs them to not cut down the cedar tree. Who's Avram and who is Sarai here?
Avram is the cedar tree. No.
And the cedar tree was spared because of the palm tree. So this also kind of minimizes the palm tree sacrifice, right? The palm tree is not raped. The palm tree is not abducted. The palm tree is just begging the men to save the life of the cedar tree. So it's kind of like a sanitized version of what Sarai is doing for Avram. But I do think that the cedar is Avram, right? The survival of the cedar tree is what the story, what this dream is about, right? This big, strong tree and this imagine a cedar tree. Now imagine a palm tree. Which one is sturdier? We're not botanists, but we can guess, right? The palm tree is kind of this flimsy, pretty, right? But the cedar tree is a strong, it has deep roots, right? Avram needs to survive. Sarai, she's pretty important. That was that palm tree. I like a good palm tree. But the cedar tree, right? That's like a serious, that's a tree, right? Okay, so the cedar tree, this big, strong, rooted tree, we have to make sure that this tree is preserved. And like I said, it does kind of minimize the sacrifice that Sarai makes, because all the palm tree does is say to the men, oh, please, please don't hurt the cedar, right? So this is very sophisticated, right? This is a really sophisticated, what I would call this a midrash. And then he says to Sarai, I've dreamt this dream, I'm very, very fearful. She says, tell me your dream that I will see, tell me your dream that I may know it. So I began to tell her this dream, and then there's some spaces in the text we don't know. And Sarai wept that night on account of my words. She understands, well, they interpret the dream together. She understands that she has to go to Paro and say to their brother and sister. And then, do you see, and beautiful is her face, how fine are the hairs of her head. That's the scene of the Egyptians seeing her for the first time. And they take her. Now, can you read, you're telling me? Okay. Can you please read on the top of page, I don't know what page it is for you, but, and I, Abraham, wept aloud that night.
And I, Abram, wept aloud that night, I and my nephew Lot, because Sarai had been taken from me by force. I prayed that night, and I begged and implored, and I said in my sorrow, while my tears ran down, Blessed art thou, most high God, Lord of all worlds, thou who art Lord and King of all things, and who rulest over all the kings of the earth, and judgest them all.
On the one hand, this is very liturgical. Now, we didn't have fixed liturgy, like rabbinic liturgy in the first century, but we did have some kind of flexible liturgy. I mean, we see Daniel praise, and we see in other Second Temple texts that there is this very, and in Qumran we have liturgical formula and liturgical documents. And here we have this very nice prayer, but it's also kind of Hellenist, right? Imagine that you are a Greek playwright and you're setting a stage and you want great pathos, right? So I wept, right? There's like kind of a setting of the scene here. I prayed that night, I begged, I implored, so you have like this nice fusion of traditions. And he prays, and then thanks to this great prayer, and Abraham's so distressed, right? He didn't want any of this to happen. Sarai is saved. Yes.
It sounds like a proto-bracha. Is that in the Hebrew too, or is this? And it seems like earlier than we don't have any.
A proto-bracha.
Blessed are thou, most.
Oh, okay. So that formula, and Reuven Kilman has done interesting work on the origins of that. That is extremely old. Yeah. So that you see the formula in other Qumran documents, the blessing formula.
Wow.
So right. So it is at least middle Second Temple period. Yeah, yeah.
The story is from, is in Avram's voice. I was weeping.
Right, and the story in Genesis, Rishon, is not first person.
Right.
That's great insight. Yeah, personalizes it, humanizes it. And it also makes you really want to empathize, right, with the cedar tree. I'll just say a little bit about Pesher Habakkuk, and then we'll take some questions. Because I already mentioned the community rule. But Pesher Habakkuk interprets Habakkuk, and there are other what's called Pisharim interpretations. These, again, are unique to the library of Qumran. And these Pisharim, these interpretations, interpret some books of the minor prophets, Nahum and some others, through the lens of the history of the sect. So the writer here is interpreting the prophecies of Habakkuk as predictions that the sect will come. And what's very important about these documents is that they give hints, historical hints, as to how this sect came to settle at Qumran. And so we have some information. There's a figure called the Teacher of Righteousness who takes the sect, probably from Jerusalem, separates them. They're not happy with what's happening with the temple administration, and they separate thanks to the Teacher of Righteousness. They settle at Qumran. We also know that he butted heads with somebody called the Wicked Priest, and they had this big clash, and there were different followers. And so we have all this information. The Wicked Priest and the Teacher of Righteousness are mentioned in community rule, and I think in the Damascus document, but the historical information, they're all allusions because no one is named, really comes from the Pesher material. So I encourage you to read it on your own. But still, it's not totally clear what the origins of the sect were. Scholars think in the beginning or middle of the 2nd century BC, there was this clash. And at some point, probably Essenes, which is a sect of Jews that Josephus talks about, probably, but not certainly, Essenes who were very pious, very highly regarded sect. Some of them, but not all, didn't marry. Some Essenes were celibate, but not all. So these Essenes left Jerusalem because they were unhappy with the corruption happening in Jerusalem, and they settled at Qumran. Qumran. So that's all I'm going to say about that, because I really want to focus on the process of recovery. And with the remaining 3 minutes, I'll take questions and comments. Yes.
Where are the physical scrolls right now?
So I think that some of them are in the Israel Museum. The shrine of the, yeah, and some of them, I think that they're mainly, some of them are at Hebrew U. Have you heard of Yonatan Adler? He's a young professor at Hebrew U who recently was, I think he was in the basement of the Israel Museum, and what they have these like cabinet shelves where you pull out, you have to get permission to access these things. You pull out these like thin shelves, and then you can see under plated plastic or glass. And so he knew that Sukenik and some other early scholars had found tefillin at Qumran. And they were crushed. And the assumption was, these look like tefillin, but they're either empty or whatever is inside, we can't figure it out. But Yonatan Adler, just in the past few years, with laser imaging, has discovered and published that these crushed tefillin did have their scrolls, their parchments still in there, and some of them contained the Decalogue and the Shema, all sorts of interesting things. Shifton is also published on this, and I'm pretty sure that they're mainly there. I don't know where they all are, to be honest.
So that team, the Jordanian French team, when they were working in Jordan, right?
They were working in Jordan.
Okay, and somehow got to the university. Okay.
I don't know how. Something that I should know. Yeah, I don't know how it was transferred over.
And then, so one other, sorry.
Please.
The scholarship, I remember taking a class in college about ancient Judaism, and we were reading articles about speculating who the Qumran sect were the Sadducees, were the Essenes, were they, all these theories. And I'm just trying to think. So I was taking this class 2001. We were reading articles that were published in the 70s and 80s. The authors of those articles hadn't read all, right?
That's exactly, a little bit, right.
Right. I feel like you're like, how do you do that? How do you write it? Everyone's just guessing.
I think that they knew, if you're going to assume that there is a connection between the archaeological site of Qumran and the library, and by then the site had basically been excavated completely, and there was scholarship on that. And then if you know what Josephus and Philo and Pliny, the Roman historians, say about the Essenes, then you can make a very good argument that the community is Essene. However, Shifton makes a very good point that in the 70s, like you're saying, the halachic material of Qumran had not yet been published. And if you take the halachic material of Qumran into account, and then you look at Mishnaic and Talmudic quotations of what the Sadducees are saying, then you have a very compelling competing theory. And so he's been a very important voice in this debate, because he's basically for years has been saying, we've done this all backwards. We've been working with all these theories, not having that halachic material. That's a huge piece of the puzzle.
So the halachic material would be the
halachic letter, but not only. There's other halachic, there's other like embedded material as well, but the halachic letter is really important. Yeah. Any other comments? It's interesting, yeah. I don't exactly know, but now I have to look up the translation, because that's a big piece of it. I'll come back next week with information.
Were there not Jews or Israelis on those boards, like to avoid controversy, or like once? I guess it depends. I guess it depends, like when the doctrines were actually transferred, but like it seems pretty relevant to like have Israeli scholars who were probably
and also who had much better Hebrew.
Right.
And also who could, some of these scholars were excellent Hebraists, and they really did get it right when it came to the paleontology. When they did the carbon dating, these scholars did get it right in terms of the dating, pretty impressively. But that is a question. Why were the Israeli scholars not brought on earlier? Can you draw your own conclusions? I don't know. Qumran, I think, was the first one. That was in the early 80s. Yeah.
No, I guess you're being sarcastic, but there was no recognition of Israel by Jordan at that time.
Right, but the scholars were not Jordanian. The scholars were mainly French and British. But there definitely was not friendly feeling towards Israel.
But it was in Jordan, right?
Right, they were working in Jordan, but these were European scholars. There were a few Americans on the team as well.
So Israelis might not have even been able to get there.
Right, but working on the excavation team has been working on the team as well. publishing the documents.
Right, okay.
That's true. Yeah. You know what? Next week I'll come in with some information about how it got to the other side, because that's a very important piece of the puzzle. I should have been more dutiful about that. All right, well, thank you very much, and I hope to see you next week. Last week I was a big downer. I said, "Don't come, it's just the Dead Sea Scrolls." So next week I'm gonna give the most amazing lecture I've ever given. It will be kind of interesting.
Awesome.
It will cover Jewish texts preserved at Greek Orthodox, not Jewish Orthodox monasteries.
It's a fascinating place. Antarctica.
Oh, have you been?
Oh, yeah.
I might have to give you some assignments. Do you have any pictures?
I don't.
No. Oh, yeah, it's amazing.
It was very interesting because they're the Greek Orthodox priests.
Right.
And at the time I was living in Massachusetts, and one of the priests said, "Give regards to the guys in Brookline because there's a Greek Orthodox."
Holy Cross, I took Greek there for 3 years. Holy Cross in Brookline?
Mm-hmm. So it was like, it's
I know
an
Holy Cross.
international connection.
Yeah. Those guys are serious Greeks.
Oh, yeah. And it's
That doesn't sound very
amazing
nice.
to see what was preserved in that, in the monastery that was taken from Europe and saved. When
So interesting.
it's an amazing place.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, well, I look forward to more of your input for next week, because I haven't seen St. Catherine's in person. But I have seen Holy Cross.
Thank
And that's
you.
also a good place. All right, thank you so much. Have a good week. And thank you for coming.
Great.